Welcome, everyone, to the Happiness Journey with Dr. Dan podcast, where every journey is worth living. My name is Dr. Dan, and I'm your host for today's episode. I'm a bilingual cognitive behavior and neurolinguistic practitioner specializing in anger management issues, both court-appointed and private, marriage and relationship coaching, dissociative disorders, narcissistic personality disorders, depression, anxiety, dream analysis, and also provide life, business, and retirement coaching support. I provide individual one-on-one sessions in both French or English, and also do group settings. If you need any assistance, reach out to DMV Therapy and Coaching Services at 301-325-1550, and our website can be found at lifecoach.amzalike.com. In today's sixth episode of season 34, I'm very excited to have Nicholas Ruchlewicz, if I'm saying it correctly, as our special guest discussing traumatic brain injury and its short and long-term effect, including the trauma isolation as a result from lack of support. And we will also discuss how cognitive behavior psychotherapy have helped our guests tremendously to overcome these difficult challenges. So without further ado, and as with all of our previous episodes, I will leave it up to the guests to properly introduce themselves, as no one else can do a better job. Nicholas, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Dan. I appreciate it very much for having me. My name is very fun to pronounce. It's Nicholas Ruchlewicz. I appreciate it very much. It's all right. It's a Polish last name. I'm used to. I've heard a lot of crazier stuff, but I am a male traumatic brain injury survivor. My trauma happened 10 years in 1 month, almost to the day. March 15th, 2016, the Ides of March in Traumatic Brain Injury Awareness Month. It doesn't really matter what happened. I mean, I impacted a wall. I separated my pelvic circle. I broke my SI, crushed my left orbital, massive concussion, right side brain bleed, subdural hematoma. So, I mean, trauma was very present, obviously. Fortunately, I was very close to a level one trauma center. So I was taken there. I didn't actually have brain surgery. Fortunately, the swelling and the bleeding was able to be controlled without having cranial surgery. But I did have a pelvic fixation. They did repair my eye socket and other stuff. So
Mm.
in my trauma journey through the trauma unit, I have no memory of anything, but I was never unconscious, but I wasn't cognizant of anything. Every brain injury is different, and that's one of the things that I want people, hopefully people will start gathering from, me speaking about it is every journey is different and every injury can look very different. I wasn't cognizant. Right side's also the way your vision works. It's a lot of your emotional capability, your compulsivity. And, as a 35-year-old male, it makes it very hard when you're asked to be tied down to bed because you can't stand up, you can't do certain things. So it was definitely a very tireless journey. So I had no memory for about 12 days. And then I remember coming to at a rehab facility, acute, where I had to relearn how to do everything. I was non-weight bearing for about 12 weeks, but I still had to learn how to see, relax, calm down. There was definitely quite a bit of laundry list of items. So,
Can imagine.
and then, yeah, 10 years ago yesterday, on 4/15, I was discharged from the hospital. So a lot of decade anniversaries are coming up. So,
Wow,
yeah.
wow. It's already passed. I mean, actually, yesterday was April 15th. So yeah, your 10-year anniversary has probably been quite a celebration due to the fact that everything that you went through, and especially like with the brute force accident that you had to face. But did they put you into induced coma to reduce brain inflammation, or did they keep you awake all this time?
No, I was never in a coma. I was never induced. I wasn't cognizant. So fortunately, I mean, they immediately took me in. They were worried a bone or my eye socket was going to pierce my brain. Fortunately, it did not. The bleeding and they were able to control the bleeding and the swelling. So as I said, I never actually had any brain surgery. They had to redo my eye socket, my left orbital, so I have a little mesh around my eye. I can feel actually some of the screws now. But yeah, no brain surgery, no coma, no induced. But the brain is very interesting, and it's obviously the most powerful thing we have in our bodies. It's crazy. But like when I was going through different like pain spikes and stuff like that, like you can see my blood pressure rise. So my girlfriend, now my wife, would play my music, my heavy metal music station. It would literally lower my blood pressure. So even though I say I wasn't there, but I was there. I was still fighting. My body's still trying to fight it, but I have no memory of 12 days of my life where everything was just dark. And that is still to this day terrifying that, people could come in the room and I would respond to them. I would say like they're gonna say, "Oh, we're gonna go to eat dinner," and stuff like that. And I would basically respond to basic commands, but I have no memory of anything.
So is it is it like a bit of the movie like 51 Date with Adam Sandler where the girl got into an accident and she forgot everything before the event, or she remembered everything after or before the accident, but anything after that, no, it's like short-term memory has gone. Is it something that you've experienced during those 12 days?
Well, 12 days I experienced just darkness, blackness. I had was I had what I thought were dreams, but it was my brain coming in and out of, being cognizant. But I had zero, so I have no memory of the trauma. I knew I was the day I remember. I think I remember the day that it happened. I mean, it's a little, it was just a normal day, I guess. But I have no memory of it, and I believe personally in my body. Obviously, I had a major head injury. I had, I ripped my pelvis apart. So, I mean, it wasn't not painful. So, I think my body did a good job of trying to protect me from remembering that. Unfortunately, I don't have that. It's one of the hardest things when I can talk to patients that have that memory. And for me, it doesn't matter what my injury was. I mean, from theirs are so hard for me to imagine because they remember theirs. And I was fortunate that I wasn't there for anything.
Interesting. And so at that time, Nick, when did you decide that you needed to use cognitive behavior psychotherapy to be able to bring some kind of like the change of thoughts and behavior that you've dealt with post TBI?
Well, it was good. I went back in time, back to the future. 6 years before is when I started doing CBT. I had a real rough marriage situation. I was trying to figure out how to help my spouse out to get through some stuff, and then I found out how to help myself. So I journey with CBT and therapy started in 2010. And I'm fortunate that I went through it because I got separate. I like to say I got separated. Fortunately, before this happened in 2014, and then in 20 was it 2014? I guess 2015. It was sometime. Um, and then my trauma happened, and of course, everything is very different. But when I was separated, I had to. Every male loves to live with their parents. I had to move back in my mother in the basement, and that's where I was. So, but instead of me wanting to be isolated at home before my trauma, I pushed myself to go out. I would go to different games. I would try to go to just be occupying myself, which I do believe helped me get to the best spot possible. So I saw the therapist, again for 6 years before my trauma. My trauma happens. I didn't see her obviously for a month. I saw her, and then literally the week later, they suffered a heart attack and had to stop practicing. So you talk about the wool pulled out from under me.
Oh yeah.
Um, the hospital had a wonderful psychiatrist, and he definitely, I would say, he put his name, he put a hard mirror to my face, asking me hard questions. But fortunately, I learned through CBT, through my previous therapist, that I did have to ask myself the harder things to go. So when I searched for a new therapist, I knew, CBT. So and obviously my insurance, a couple other little taglines. And I looked and I reached out to five different therapists. Two of them didn't respond to me. Two of them said they're not seeing patients. And one of them said they'll see me, but it has to be during working hours. And I said, my mental health is the most important thing. I got to make it through this. I mean, I learned, my therapist taught me so much to get here, and I want to keep it going. So that was over 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago in July of 20, 16 is when I first went into her office, and now, I mean, I still see her now.
Wow, wow, wow. That is incredible in terms of like, when you need the help the most, the person that was providing the help. I mean, what is the coincidence? I mean, for them to have a heart attack and you not be able to get the support that you needed. But have you tried other modalities besides CBT, such as EMDR, that does deal with traumatic, event, etc.? I mean, did you try to kind of explore outside of specifically just CBT?
I did look at some of the items, and obviously insurance is always the
Yeah.
biggest curtail. And fortunately, since I have no memory of the trauma, EDM, or it's not EDM, but EDR, whatever the
EMDR.
analogy, yeah, it does necessarily a fit for me for it. I do know some other trauma survivors that have used it, and it's been tremendously helpful, but it wasn't for me. They did talk about, I think I did some type of magnetic wave therapy. It didn't really seem to help. But it was interesting too, because, I was always high performing, always hyper active before, but after my trauma, I was, I don't want to say severe, but my ADHD was amazingly there. It was very present. I
Mhm.
was never treated for it before, but after my trauma,
Yeah.
it reared its head bad. So, I mean, that was another thing that I had to go through too, to like, have to control my mind. I mean, again, our brains are very powerful, and right side is your compulsivity. It's the way you to problem solve everything else. Well, that is also what a lot of ADHD stuff is about: compulsivity, focusing. And so, that's why I personally believe everything's amplified after a brain injury of any underlying stuff that might be there.
And what about the physiological effect? I mean, did you have any like severe migraines or anything that stayed for a while after everything that have happened? I mean, did you go through any physiological changes, any any like depression, anxiety, or anything of that sort besides just the physical effect?
Oh, answer's always yes. I had severe depression and anxiety. It was not diagnosed as PTSD. I did studies later. It was close to PTSD, but it was more just severe depression. Physically, I mean, I separated my pelvis, so I was in a lot of pain. But I said, I don't like calling it pain, because when you say the word pain, it has power over you. So if
Mhm.
I don't talk about it, it doesn't live. So I'll say I'm uncomfortable. I don't actually try to use the word pain. It's, when you unfortunately have to be on some pretty strong medicines after an incident like this. So I made sure, because I had someone I was close to at one point in my life that unfortunately abused medicine. So I made sure, like, when I took my meds, I wrote down the times I took and everything else. And it was funny because 2 years or so later, I was cleaning out my, apartment or something, and I found that little notepad, and it was like, I forgot how, I mean, I wrote down to the minute when I took the meds, and I was like, oh my gosh, I took them that many times because I needed them. But it's funny because I have not taken a pill, to help support me, and since 2019, and I still know where it is in my house. And but it's there to remind me that I'll be safe if I need it, but I am not interested at all to utilize it. And it's again, that's the willpower I've had to, push myself into. Years later, I've had, and we believe it's something, a phenomenon they call body memory. So sometimes if I have a headache, all of a sudden I can feel anxiety and fear start conquering me. And it's my body, I believe, recognizing that, you know, we cannot as human beings remember pain. That's what they say.
Mhm.
But our bodies fear pain. We can't recall anything. We just know what it felt. We remember what it felt like. So when my body was feeling, I feel like sometimes when I have a headache like that, my body starts gearing up like, oh my gosh, I had to fight for my life,
Yeah,
because the human body's number one goal is to survive.
correct. Yes.
And that is what its goal is. So, and the one way to avoid it is to avoid harm. So our bodies will instinctively, I was talking with someone the other day, like, you can't knock yourself out with a punch because your body won't let you.
Yes.
It just doesn't work like that. So
But
if
that's why we
your
have the
body,
sympathetic nervous system to protect us, right?
yep, yep.
Absolutely. But then overall, through all this experience, Nick, I mean, I know that, I've dealt with a lot of people with TBIs, when it comes to providing them with the modality that needs, for them to be able to move on with their life. But do you live in the same location, the same city where the accident happened? And the reason why I'm asking this question is because is there any time where you drive by where the accident actually occurred, and then your brain start recollecting bits and parts of the memory of the incident?
No, I mean, it was one thing we were worried about. So, like I said, I had a rough separation divorce. So I had a new motorcycle and I didn't want to ride it on the road with all the salt because it was in March, so we had snow. So I had it stored in a storage unit with my other stuff to do. So when my trauma happened, it was there. Um, Again, doesn't really matter what happened, but when we went back there to clear out my storage unit, like I was gearing up to be terrified. Like, and I see the spot on the wall where I crashed. Like I can see the burn mark there. And I had zero effect. It didn't, I know it happened. But again, I mean, the impact was my brain was, I say my brain was out. But it has no memory of it. As I said, the only thing that I have is the body memory. If I start feeling a lot of pain and discomfort. That's when my body freaks out. But I have fortunately no memory and no recall of it. I remember myself riding the motorcycle. I don't know if, like I said, it was the day, and I don't know what happened. It just happened. And I don't go by that area a lot just because it's off the beaten path. But I have driven by there before, and I'm like, oh, that's where I almost died. And I can literally pinpoint on Google Maps the exact point I hit because if I would have gone 6 feet the other way, I would have just gone to the street. So it was, I mean, I can literally look on a Google map and show you that I hit right here. It's pretty crazy.
Wow, wow, wow. Okay. Now, what for any of our listeners who are going through or have gone through those traumatic brain injury, what would you suggest in terms of like the process after that, after they've been discharged from the hospital? What should they do next? Because sometimes you're lost, sometimes you don't know exactly what's the next step to move on with your life, not to be stuck with the past and start living in the moment. So, do they need to get the I would say therapy? Do they need to start talking to get a support group? Because as you mentioned, you had the trauma isolation. So what is the next step that you would suggest for them, Nick?
So, I cannot give medical advice. I tell patients that, but the most important thing is to do is start having conversations with your doctor. And we can talk to our primary care. I have a great relationship with mine now, but they help with our different medicine management, but they also can hear certain things and they will direct us to other, psychiatrists, neurologists, anything we might need to get checkups on. I mean, again, I very fortunate how well I healed. It was not easy, but I know that there is quite a bit. I'm in Northern Virginia, outside of Washington, D.C., and I'm very fortunate to be in an area like this. So there is there's a brain injury services, Brain Injury of America, brain injury services. There's local areas that do have support networks, and trauma is the number one cause of death between 1 and 45. Technically, guns are 1 in 17, but it's still trauma.
Yeah.
So it happens to a lot of people. And so I volunteer with Trauma Survivors Network, and that is someone that had to go, life was touched by trauma through an ER, not ER, obviously a trauma unit, etc. So ours is very, very unique. But in that, there's a support group. When eye injury happened, they were not active in my hospital. They were on a little lull, but I was fortunate enough to find them later on through my mentoring program I did with my rehab hospital, and then I started going there. So now that's been a very important support group because, you know, n- my mode of injury can be very different the person on the left or person on the right. But the one thing that is the same is the journey through recovery. It's a journey through isolation. It's the companionship you have with these people. It's why do
Sure.
you have a sick sense of humor now? It's because sometimes that's how you got to laugh at it. If we laugh at the thing, it doesn't have control over us. And that's why humor is such a powerful medicine and coping mechanism, because when you can laugh at something, your body will instinctively say, I got this, because
Yes.
it rushes endorphins and everything else. So,
That's so true. I mean, actually, there's a story where a woman was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and her brother, who was a stand-up comedian, asked her because she was on the final phase before, I would say, passing away.
mhm.
He asked her to come with her to all his stand-up comedy routine when he was on tour. So she did that. She laughed and laughed and laughed. Then after that, she started feeling much better, much more alive, much more energy. She went to the doctor a few months later because they gave her 6 months to live, and there was no more trace of the cancer.
Wow, that's
Imagine that. Not
yeah,
nothing from stage 4. It was so benign that they were able to go and remove the lump, whatever it is. But just to tell you that if you start laughing, you put more humor to your life. And yes, we all go through stress. We all, our cortisol level, especially now with the war, with the economy, the inflation, and
yeah,
so on and so forth. Yeah, we're sky high. But then again, if we take life too seriously, Nick, we're not going to make it. We
yeah.
have to allow ourselves to be able to live whatever remainder of our life we have. I mean, depending exactly what age you're in or anything of that sort. But it's really crazy that people they live their life to work, and then what do they have to show for?
Yeah,
Absolutely nothing.
it is. I mean, fake it till you make it is not a, it's not just a throw around thing. Sometimes you can, if you put a smile on, it is infectious. And I tell, like I used to say after my trauma, if I don't give negative breath, it doesn't live,
Mm,
meaning I just don't want to talk about it. I don't, it's something I choose to really do. And I learned from another mentor. I've learned a lot from other people through their journey, but I don't say, I say why not me instead of why me? Why not me? Anybody, if anybody can do it, I know I can.
mm.
And having an attitude of gratitude can really help, do. And I have a million one-liners, but hope is a free medicine. Sometimes having a little bit of hope is all we can really do, and when we're facing with some other challenges.
Absolutely. So now, I mean, you live in the DMV area, as you said, like near the Washington, D.C., like Northern Virginia. And I know there's a lot of very good hospitals there that deals with TBIs, etc. But as of today, compared to what happened like 12 years ago or 10 years ago, how do you feel now? Do you feel that your symptoms are less as I would say imposed as before? They're less or they're less frequent, or the physicality behind it, the headaches, whatever it is, anxiety, depression. Do you feel all this is subsiding?
I'm gonna say I've learned to adapt with certain things. Um, you know, So example, like I don't have full feeling in my left side. It's just that'll probably be until I'm no longer around, and that's fine. I've things feel different. If I do too much, my eyes will drift. I have to relearn how to focus my eyes. There's a
Mhm.
lot of little things I've had to pick up, but I will tell you that if I focus on all the stuff that wasn't working, I would be very depressed and very angry. Instead, I try to look at what I have been able to do, and that's kind of where I coined the term a gift of perspective. My trauma has given me a lot of gifts, and the gift is seeing things very differently and not letting things control me in that manner.
So you
So
feeling
it
numb on the left side?
oh yeah, so right side brain injury means left side negligence or paralysis. So I don't have full feeling. I woke up not being able to move my left side much. It kind of my hands or legs flopped around, and I had to relearn how to use my eyes to focus them again. And then yeah, so the sense of touch feels different on my left side than it does my right side. It's just the way it is. Nerves heal like 1 millimeter, however many on perfect conditions. So you pretty lot of millimeters to add up. It takes a while. So, but so things feel different now and then with it. If I'm not cognizant, sometimes I'll drop things with my left hand. Like I try not to pick up glasses with my left hand because I was called a proprioception issue where I don't know my body is in space. So I
Mhm.
could knock into things because it's again how my brain recognizes where my body is, like where is it in space. It doesn't necessarily know where it is all the time. I had to relearn how to walk because I had to fix my gait. I don't truly feel my legs 100% and sometimes. So I need to I had to learn to fix my gait, straighten myself up and do it. So all those little things are still going on. I just have learned very well through physical therapy, through speech therapy, cognitive, help and occupational to handle those. I tell people, it's like your trauma happened, your injury happened, whatever, and then everything's reset. And it takes a while to build it back up, but all those little techniques we learn are like little Legos, and they build a bigger and better thing. But it needs to go, unfortunately, down to the core. And how do you make this happen?
Wow, wow, wow. And so isn't that can be a problem if, let's say, God forbid, Nick, you feel or there's a heart attack and you don't feel anything left on your, and you will not know how to decipher both if you don't have much feeling on the left side, and that's what causes, or not causes, but the side effect of a heart attack is the numbness of the left side. Would you be able to know the difference between both?
So I have feeling on my left side. So I'm not like I can use my left hand. It's not as dexterous as the other because I'm right-handed anyhow.
Okay.
Um, if it did go numb, I could probably tell, but I mean, I understand what you're saying. You might necessarily know. Fortunately, I mean, I'm a big guy and everything else. I haven't had to face that battle. But I do one thing I've learned to do very clearly is recognize any little changes my body does. Example, I was on a different medicine, same medicine, but a different formulation. And I started feeling weird and I started going, well, that's the only thing that's different. Oh, this medicine is a different type of capsule than it was. I talked to the pharmacy, they switched it back to the other one and the problems dissipated. So it's very important to someone. It doesn't matter if you're a trauma survivor or not, but it's really important to kind of look at that as a holistic look at it, what changed, and then that is able how we're able to problem solve what's going on. Because a little thing that can be added to it can really take us out. And it's crazy that as big as a dude I am, I have a zero point 0.5 milligram of some medicine and a different formulation made me feel very different. And it's like, what? It's the same medicine. There's a lot of fillers that have to get to bind it. So stuff like that is how I know. So I am very conscious when I've had something that didn't feel right. I do talk to my doctor. But that's why it's important to have a good relationship with a doctor, with your primary care, because we need to have conversations and mental health is, I mean, it's such a trigger word. It's not a throwaway word, guys. I mean, it's a big deal. So having to check in with yourself is sometimes the hardest thing to do. So I mean, it's always a journey. I mean, that's why we're here, just to do this crazy journey.
It's already like most people don't know the signs when something is wrong in their body. And you have to learn, you have to really pay attention, especially when it comes to something that is feeling off. And the fact that you had those injuries, that adds to the complexity of really understanding everything. But then at the same time, you have a sixth sense. Because of whatever happened, I think your body with the neuroplasticity power was able to kind of like rewire something in your
Yep.
mind, be able to kind of like pay attention to the tiny little details. But then again, it can play against you because anything that is off, you may think that something is really wrong, and it may exacerbate your anxiety and other symptoms. So that can play good, but at the same time in the wrong direction.
Yep. No, I understand. I mean, that's 100% correct. It is sometimes able to say, remind myself, the grounding technique. Okay, I'm safe. What do I see? What do I smell? What do I do? I'm okay. And I don't use it lightly, that perspective, but I've been through worse. I've been through some terrible stuff, and I know that there's worse crap in the world. I know some people are going through so much worse. So that'll sometimes get me to reset, shake myself out of that spiral and to say, okay, let's talk about it logically. What could this be? And then obviously if it's an emergency, go to that's what we have the ER, don't, or 911, don't mess around with it. But if I learned how to ask myself certain questions and get dialogues going. And I've messaged my doctor and like, if it feels like this, go to the hospital right now, but look out for this. Again, there is some good with telehealth that you can sometimes reach a doctor, and ask them questions and they will give you a guidance, and just understanding that A lot of things can trigger our bodies to do random stuff. So again, it is exhausting sometimes. Remember all the little tricks I had to learn to do whatever you want to call a life of normal.
Mhm.
I do it. It's just because again, it's second nature all this time. It has to be second nature.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Absolutely. And that in itself allows you to be able to kind of like still be present in the moment and knowing exactly what you need to pay attention to, because of course all those small details is kind of like, it can really exacerbate your anxiety because, oh my God, what's wrong now? Oh, what's next? What's this? What's that? So it gets to be very, very overwhelming at times.
Yep. 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 Yep.
So before we conclude this podcast, Nick, can you tell our listeners how they can, reach out to you if they want to be able to ask question about your other details of your accident?
Perfect. Yeah. Well, I'm not super big on a good sales pitchy or stuff, but I do have a link tree at Gifts of Perspective, and I'll post any videos I've been in. There's some resources there for finding a local trauma support area by you. I've been able to help direct people from around the globe to some potential resources. And I also have an email, gifts of perspective at gmail.com. And again, my goal is to help people find, if I can be a web to help people find a place where they can feel comfortable and be safe is all that matters. I would say if I helped one person, I guess it was worth it.
Absolutely. And, I think by providing them with some resources that they could not find on their own, that will give them a peace of mind on knowing that they can get the right treatment, they could get the right help out there, and they just have to be looking for it. And this is the reason why we have this podcast, Nick, is to be able to provide those resources to all those who need it. And that, is definitely something that people appreciate a lot. And that's why we have a lot of listeners just paying attention to every of our guest stories, so that can actually help them to get inspired, to motivate themselves, to be able to know that there is life after trauma.
Yeah, and so in Trauma Survivors Network.org, that's and May is National Trauma Awareness Day. I think it's May 21st. So there's a lot of different trauma centers will do different events, and I've been featured on different their website or whatever because of my trauma, and I actually did a webinar a while last year about anxiety and depression going through trauma. So you know, I tell it's not a just a throwaway phrase, you're not alone. It is true that you are not alone, but it's unfortunate we do have to really reach out to find out you're not alone. But I promise there's people that want to help you, and help is a gift people freely give.
Absolutely. Well, Nick, on that note, that is all the time that we have for today's podcast. And again, thank you sincerely for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us. And we all appreciate your participation to this episode by sharing with our audience the importance of short and long-term therapy to those who have dealt with traumatic brain injury due to any type of brute force accident. Now, to our millions of listeners out there, we hope that you've enjoyed today's episode as much as we did. And we're also very excited for what's ahead in season 34 of the Happiness Journey with Dr. Den podcast, featuring a lineup of incredible guests with powerful stories that will continue to uplift and inspire all of you. Now, here are some concluding words of wisdom. Living with a TBI can be overwhelming, especially when it affects memory, emotion, focus, and confidence. Recovery may feel unpredictable, but progress is still possible, even if it seems very slow. Short-term cognitive behavioral psychotherapy helps provide stability by addressing immediate challenges such as anxiety, emotional regulation, and daily coping skills. It offers practical tools and structure to manage stress and mood changes during recovery. Now, long-term psychotherapy focuses on deeper healing, including rebuilding identity, processing emotion, and adapting to cognitive changes. It helps individuals understand the impact of traumatic brain injury while restoring confidence, independence, and resilience over time. Recovery is not returning to who you were before, but about moving forward with strength and self-compassion. With consistent support, meaningful healing and growth are possible. My name is Dr. Dan Amzalag, and you may all keep pursuing your amazing journey in life. Stay tuned for our next episode.